Welcome to today's deep dive. You ready to explore something super powerful really for anybody, but especially for leadership?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so today we're diving into the idea of what's called the listening mind. Sounds kind of, almost mystical, right?
Right.
But it's actually super practical, and we're going to see how it connects to transformational leadership.
Yeah, and it's all about how to listen better, which it turns out most of us aren't that great at.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're going to be pulling some incredible insights from a chapter in Transforming the Impossible.
That's a great book.
It is. It's by Dr. Joshua Kolawole.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with his work.
And we're also going to weave in some really interesting points from the foreword by Albert W. Wu.
Nice.
So we've got a lot to unpack here. And to really set the stage right off the bat, the book hits us with this quote.
Okay.
It's from Stephen Covey, and it's like, boom, right between the eyes.
Mm-mm.
He says, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply.
Oof, that one stings a little bit.
Right. I mean, how often do we do that? We're not really listening. We're just waiting for our turn to jump in.
Yeah, I know. I've been guilty of that myself.
Oh, yeah, all the time. But as leaders, especially transformational leaders, that can be a real danger zone.
It is, because you end up missing out on so much valuable information, and you miss those opportunities to really connect with your team.
It's like you're so focused on your own agenda that you're not really present with the other person.
Exactly, and that's the opposite of what transformational leadership is all about.
Right, because transformational leadership is all about inspiring and empowering others to achieve incredible things. And that starts with truly listening to them.
And understanding them. And valuing their perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do we cultivate that kind of deep listening? How do we move from that intent to reply to a genuine intent to understand?
Well, Dr. Kolawole lays out a really helpful framework. He breaks down effective listening into 5 stages.
5 stages. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so we have receiving, understanding, remembering, evaluating, and responding.
It sounds pretty straightforward, but I have a feeling there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely. Each stage has its nuances and its challenges and its potential pitfalls.
Well, let's break it down then. Let's start with receiving.
Okay, so receiving, it seems simple enough, right? You're just taking in the information. But in our world of constant distractions, truly being present during a conversation can be a real struggle.
Oh, tell me about it. I feel like I'm constantly battling with my phone, with emails, with my to-do list.
Right. And when our attention is divided, we're not fully receiving the message. We're missing those subtle cues, those nuances in tone and body language.
So how do we improve that receiving stage? How do we become more present?
Well, Dr. Kolawole gives some really practical tips. He talks about minimizing distractions, being mindful of our body language, and creating a space where the speaker feels comfortable sharing their thoughts.
That makes sense, like putting your phone away, making eye contact, really showing that you're engaged.
Exactly. And it's also about creating a sense of psychological safety, letting the speaker know that they can be vulnerable, that they can share their ideas without fear of judgment.
Because if they don't feel safe, they're not going to truly open up.
Exactly. And that takes us to the next stage, understanding.
So we've received the information, now we have to make sense of it.
Right. And this is where empathy becomes absolutely crucial. We have to step outside of our own perspectives and try to see the world through the speaker's eyes.
That's so important. Because it's not just about hearing the words, it's about understanding the meaning behind the words, the feelings, the motivations, the experiences that are shaping their perspective.
And that takes effort. It takes asking clarifying questions, not just to get more information, but to show that you're genuinely trying to understand their point of view.
It's about saying, hey, help me understand where you're coming from.
Exactly. And when you do that, you create a deeper connection. You build trust. You show that you value their perspective.
And that lays the foundation for everything else that follows. Okay, so we've covered receiving and understanding, but now things get really interesting because Dr. Kolawole introduces this idea of shallow listening versus deep listening.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets real.
He actually compares it to like exploring a lake, Like you could just skim the surface, or you could like dive down deep and explore the depths.
So you're going to see a lot more down in the depths.
Exactly. And shallow listening, that's like skimming the surface. You're only picking up bits and pieces. You're probably filtering everything through your own biases and preconceived notions.
It's like you're hearing the words, but you're not really absorbing the meaning,
It's like when someone's talking to you and you're like nodding along, but you're actually thinking about what you're going to have for dinner.
That's a classic example of passive listening. You're there, but you're not really there, you know?
Or like when you're just waiting for your turn to speak.
Oh yeah, that's responsive listening. It becomes more about you than about the other person.
And then there's selective listening, which, I think we've all been guilty of that at some point.
Oh, for sure. It's like you have these blinders on and you only hear what you want to hear.
You just tune out anything that doesn't fit your existing beliefs.
Exactly. And as leaders, we have to be so careful about falling into these traps, these shallow listening habits.
Because it can really damage relationships, it can lead to misunderstandings, it can prevent us from making good decisions.
It can really undermine our effectiveness as leaders.
So how do we move from shallow listening to deep listening?
Well, Dr. Kolawole breaks it down into 3 types of deep listening.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with them.
All right, so first we have attentive listening. It's about being fully present, silencing those internal distractions, and being genuinely curious about what the other person has to say.
It's like hitting the pause button on all that mental chatter and just focusing on the speaker and their message.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And then we have active listening.
Okay, active listening.
This is where you take it a step further. You're not just listening, you're engaging. You're asking clarifying questions, you're paraphrasing to make sure you understand, you're using nonverbal cues to show that you're following along.
You're showing them that you're not just hearing their words, you're actively trying to understand their perspective.
Exactly. It's like you're building a bridge of understanding between the two of you.
And it seems like that would take some practice, right? Like learning to ask the right questions to paraphrase effectively.
Oh, definitely. It's a skill that you develop over time. But Dr. Kolawole offers some great tips, like reflecting back the speaker's emotions, summarizing key points, and asking open-ended questions to encourage them to elaborate.
And I imagine that when you do that, it creates a really powerful connection with the speaker.
It does. It makes them feel heard, it makes them feel validated, and it encourages them to share more openly.
And then the final type of deep listening, the holy grail, so to speak, empathic listening.
This is where the real magic happens. This is about stepping into the speaker's shoes, feeling what they're feeling, seeing the world through their eyes.
It's about connecting with them on a heart level, not just a head level.
And it's not about agreeing with them or offering solutions. It's about creating a safe space for them to express themselves and feel truly heard.
Like just holding that space for them without judgment.
Exactly. And Dr. Kolawole uses this really powerful analogy. He says, empathic listening is like holding up a mirror to the speaker.
I love that.
It allows them to see themselves and their emotions reflected back without any distortion.
And that kind of deep connection, it can be transformative, right? Not just for the speaker, but for the listener as well.
Absolutely. It can break down barriers, it can build trust, it can open up new possibilities for collaboration and understanding.
But let's be real. Achieving that level of deep listening, especially empathic listening, consistently, it's not always easy.
It's not. There are all sorts of things that can get in the way, what Dr. Kolawole calls noises from the aroused state.
Noises from the aroused state. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, think about all the internal and external distractions that prevent us from truly being present. Our emotional triggers, our personal biases, those annoying environmental noises, even just our own busy minds.
Like all that mental chatter that just never seems to stop?
Yeah, exactly. It's like having static on the radio, making it hard to hear the message clearly.
And these noises, they can really sabotage our listening efforts, can't they?
They can. And Dr. Kolawole breaks them down into specific categories to help us identify and address them.
Okay, let's hear some examples.
Well, one that we've touched on already is selective listening. That's when we filter out information that challenges our beliefs.
We hear what we want to hear, and we tune out the rest.
Exactly. And then there's emotional listening. That's when our own insecurities and anxieties color how we interpret what we hear.
Like when we take something personally that wasn't meant to be personal.
Or when we read into things that aren't actually there.
And then there's insensitive listening.
This is when we judge the speaker based on their appearance, their accent, their background. We might dismiss someone's ideas because of their age, their gender, even their clothing.
We're making assumptions about them before we've even really listened to what they have to say.
And all of these barriers, they create these roadblocks to effective communication.
They prevent us from truly seeing and hearing the other person.
And of course, we can't forget about the impact of technology.
Oh yeah, the elephant in the room.
Multitasking, constantly checking our phones, that divided attention, it makes deep listening almost impossible.
So we've got these internal barriers, we've got these external barriers. It feels like we're fighting an uphill battle here.
It can feel that way. But the good news is that we're not powerless. There are things we can do to overcome these barriers and cultivate a more powerful, more effective listening mind.
Okay, so we've identified all these barriers, these noises that can get in the way of deep listening. But where do we go from here? How do we actually cultivate a listening mind that's capable of real transformation?
Well, the good news is that Dr. Kolawole doesn't just leave us hanging with a bunch of problems. He gives us a roadmap, a set of tools and strategies to help us develop what he calls a trained listening mind.
I like that, a trained listening mind. Because it makes it sound achievable, right? Like this isn't some magical ability that some people have and others don't. It's a skill that we can cultivate with practice.
Exactly. It's about intentionally developing certain habits, certain ways of thinking and being that make us more effective listeners.
So what does a trained listening mind actually look like in action? What are some of the key qualities that we should be striving for?
Well, one of the most important and perhaps the most counterintuitive is listening with gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay, that's not what I was expecting.
I know, right? But think about it. When we approach a conversation with an attitude of gratitude, with an appreciation for the opportunity to learn and connect with the other person, it shifts our whole perspective.
Instead of seeing listening as a chore or an obligation, it becomes a gift.
Exactly. A chance to expand our understanding, to deepen our relationships. And that shift in mindset can make a world of difference.
That makes sense. So gratitude is key. What else?
Another important quality is listening with keen observation.
Keen observation. Okay, tell me more about that.
It's about paying attention not just to the words being spoken, but also to the speaker's nonverbal cues. Their tone of voice, their body language, their facial expressions. All those subtle signals that can reveal so much about what they're really thinking and feeling.
It's like becoming a detective, right?
Exactly. You're piecing together the clues to get a deeper understanding of the message.
And of course, we can't forget about empathy. We've talked about it before, but it's so crucial to a trained listening mind.
It really is. It's about putting yourself in the speaker's shoes, feeling what they're feeling, seeing the world through their eyes.
It's about connecting with them on a heart level, not just an intellectual level.
And that requires a genuine desire to understand their experience, even if you don't agree with them or share their perspective.
It's about setting aside your own judgments and biases and really opening yourself up to their reality.
And when you do that, it can be incredibly powerful. It can create a sense of connection and understanding that transcends differences.
So we've got gratitude, we've got observation, we've got empathy. What else is important for cultivating a trained listening mind?
Well, all of these qualities really culminate in listening with a focus on understanding both the content and the intent of the speaker's message.
The content and the intent. Okay,
Yeah.
break that down for me.
So the content is the what, the information being conveyed. But the intent is the why, the underlying motivations, the needs, the desires that are driving the speaker's communication.
It's about going beyond the surface level to really grasp at the deeper meaning.
Exactly. And Dr. Kolawole actually gives a great example from his own experience working with the team that was struggling with conflict. He realized that they were all so focused on defending their own positions that they weren't truly listening to each other.
They were talking past each other, not really having a genuine conversation.
Exactly. So he facilitated a series of listening exercises where team members were encouraged to paraphrase each other's perspectives, to ask clarifying questions, and to really try to understand the underlying needs and motivations driving each other's behavior.
And what happened?
The results were pretty amazing. As the team members started to truly listen to each other, the walls started to break down. They began to see each other as human beings with valid perspectives, even if they didn't agree on everything.
That's so powerful. Just by shifting their listening habits, they were able to transform the whole dynamic of the team.
It really highlights how a trained listening mind can not only improve individual communication, but also create more harmonious and effective teams and organizations.
So we've talked about the qualities of a trained listening mind, but why is this so important for leaders, especially transformational leaders?
Well, Dr. Kolawole outlines 5 key benefits that are really at the heart of transformational leadership.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, we have improved understanding. When leaders genuinely listen to their team members, they gain a deeper understanding of their perspectives, their challenges, and their aspirations.
Which allows them to make more informed decisions, build stronger relationships, and create a work environment where everyone feels valued and heard.
Exactly, and that leads directly to the second benefit, increased trust. When team members feel heard and understood by their leader, it creates a sense of psychological safety and mutual respect.
They're more likely to open up, share their ideas, and take risks, knowing that their leader has their back.
The third benefit is enhanced orderliness and productivity. When leaders listen effectively, they can identify and address potential problems before they escalate into major conflicts or disruptions.
It's about creating a culture of open communication where everyone feels comfortable sharing their concerns and ideas.
The fourth benefit is improved outcomes in negotiations. A leader with a listening mind can approach negotiations with empathy and understanding, seeking to find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
It's about moving beyond a win-lose mentality to create win-win situations that build stronger relationships and foster long-term collaboration.
And finally, Dr. Kolawole emphasizes that a listening mind is crucial for leadership sustainability.
Leaders who listen effectively are more likely to create a positive and supportive work environment that attracts and retains top talent.
They're also more likely to be seen as authentic and trustworthy, which is essential for building a strong and enduring legacy.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the listening mind, I think the big takeaway here is that it's not just a nice-to-have skill. It's an essential tool for effective leadership, for building strong relationships, and for creating positive change in the world.
Absolutely. And it all starts with making a conscious choice to cultivate those qualities of a trained listening mind.
So as we leave you today, we want to challenge you to take action. What's one specific thing you can do this week to become a more active and empathetic listener?
Could be something small, like putting your phone away during conversations or practicing paraphrasing to make sure you understand. Or it could be something bigger, like scheduling dedicated time to really listen to someone you care about.
Whatever it is, make a commitment to cultivating your listening mind. Because, as Dr. Kolawole so beautifully demonstrates, it's a powerful tool for transformation, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's inspired you to embrace the power of the listening mind.